On Thanksgiving night, I sat in the living room waiting for my girlfriend until the early hours. The messages I sent vanished into the void. It wasn't until after midnight that I finally got a reply. Spending the holiday with family. No need to wait for me. But soon after, a video popped up in our friends' group chat. In the surveillance footage, everyone in the escape room was terrified by an NPC and scattered like birds. Alicia dove into Makoto's arms, trembling in fear. Someone even commented, "Good thing the Liu family's second daughter didn't bring her boyfriend George this time, or he'd be going full jealous mode again." I didn't call Alicia to confront her like I usually did. Instead, I quietly left the group chat. I stared blankly at the sticky rice balls on the table, reheated over and over until they clumped together, dull and colorless, just like our relationship. I thought, maybe it's time to stop waiting. From now on, I won't wait anymore. Chapter 1. Someone quickly reminded in the group chat. Wrong group, delete it, quick. The video was swiftly deleted, right when I noticed Alicia burying her face in Makoto's chest. Truth is, I had known for a while that this group of people had another private chat, one that I had been excluded from. 3 months ago, during a gathering, someone brought up a funny video shared in the group, but when I got home and checked our chat history 10 times over, I still couldn't find anything. Even someone as slow as me gradually caught on. Alicia had formed her own little circle, a world I could never truly enter. Even though I had been by Alicia's side since we were kids, I lingered in the chat for a while. The deletion notification was quickly pushed away by a flood of messages. As if intentionally buried, I said nothing, quietly exited the group, and turned my eyes back to the food on the table. Glutinous rice dumplings stuffed with mushroom, abalone, and dried scallop, Iberian hem dumplings, golden jujube with sweet thread dumplings, all carefully picked by me. But after sitting in the living room waiting for 5 full hours, and reheating them 5 times, the sticky rice balls had long lost their shine and shape. Collapsing into a mess, I sat down, stuffing them into my mouth one bite after another. Mechanically, I chewed with all my strength, but couldn't taste any of the salty richness or sweetness I had imagined. Turns out expensive things aren't always good. They weren't even as good as the simple rice balls we bought a year ago for 1.5 yuan. Back then, Alicia Liu hadn't been acknowledged by the prestigious Liu family. She was just like me, a poor university student from an orphanage, burdened with student loans, living on steamed buns and pickled porridge from the cafeteria. Outside of classes and part-time jobs, most of her time was spent huddled next to me in smoky internet cafes, working on design assignments. Last Thanksgiving, we finally saved up 3,000 yuan. We couldn't wait to go to the electronics market and buy a second-hand computer. Alicia felt sorry that I had to work on assignments at the cafe every time. On the way back, we passed a bakery. I paused in front of a luxury gift box made of high-end ingredients, priced over 100 yuan. But when Alicia tried to empty her pockets to buy it for me, I stopped her. In the end, we squatted under the dorm building, sharing a discounted sticky rice ball under the dim streetlight. No heating, no sugar, and yet, somehow, it felt warm and sweet. Alicia gently wiped the grains of rice off the corner of my mouth. In her deer-like eyes were indescribable guilt and tenderness. She said, "That rich senior girl said she'd buy you a laptop if you just watched a movie with her, but you turned her down right away for me, and spent so many nights at the internet cafe. It's not until our junior year that you finally got a broken second-hand one. I really feel so bad for you. Your designs are so amazing. Once you start working, I'll help you go to grad school. No, I'll help you study abroad." I smiled and replied, "If a good wife supports my ambitions, then I shall return her with mountains of gold. A little suffering doesn't matter. We're definitely going to have a good life." Now, she's the second daughter of the Liu family, and the good life came to her effortlessly. But she's no longer the girl from the orphanage who shielded me with her frail arms. In front of that elite young master Makoto, she plays the delicate damsel. She used to have the guts to binge-watch 3 horror movies in a row without flinching. How could she be scared by something that childish? Maybe it was just an excuse for physical contact. I drifted into thought, dazed, wondering what a good life really means. Was it when we only had eyes for each other but were dirt poor and had only love? Or is it now, when financial freedom gradually drives a wedge between us? My eyes were lifeless, but my hands kept shoving food into my mouth non-stop. And that was when Alicia returned. Chapter 2. She pushed the door open, too exhausted to even lift her eyes. A Chanel coat hung loosely on the crook of her arm. That second-hand computer we used to work day and night to pay for wasn't even worth a fraction of that jacket. As Alicia entered, she took it off and carelessly tossed it on the floor. It wasn't until her gaze caught me from the corner of her eye that she finally looked up. "Why aren't you asleep? Didn't I tell you not to wait for me?" I swallowed the food in my mouth and calmly replied, "I was just hungry. I wasn't waiting for you." Alicia glanced at the messy rice dumpling leaves scattered across the table, frowning ever so slightly. but she quickly returned to normal, poured a glass of water, and handed it to me. You ate this much. Is this crap really that tasty? I shook my head. No, it's not. I thought it would taste good, just like I once thought that with money, happiness would be within reach. But after trying it, I realized, expensive doesn't mean good. It's just dressed in prettier packaging, filled with fancier ingredients, but it's lost the flavor it's supposed to have. Just like our relationship. Now we have everything, yet everything has changed. Alicia sensed something was off. Her beautiful lips pressed into a tight line. After a while, she finally spoke. Did you see what was posted in the group chat? That was just. I cut her off. Just a joke. I get it. She continued. And when I said I was spending the holiday with family, I wasn't trying to lie to you. It's just. I interrupted again. You didn't want me to overthink. I understand. I gently, thoughtfully finished Alicia's sentences for her. No tantrums. No accusations. Just calm indifference. Alicia let out a long sigh of relief, a rare softness returning to her voice. I'm glad you understand. There's really nothing between me and Makoto. We're just regular friends. But Maria really did cross the line with that joke. I'll make her apologize right now. She called and snapped. Didn't I tell you to watch your mouth? Apologize to your brother-in-law right now. Maria laughed. I was just running my mouth. Don't take it personally, brother-in-law. But her words were full of hidden mockery. I'll treat you to dinner next time as an apology. We'll go to the same omakase Alicia picked tonight. Bet you've never had anything like that in your life. Every word dripped with condescension. I had been to a few of their gatherings. It didn't take long to realize that girls like Maria, whose bank balances were longer than my student ID, only dated second-generation rich kids, and always looked down on poor nobodies like me. At first, their jabs were subtle, but once they saw Alicia wouldn't speak up for me, their mockery became more and more brazen. I told Alicia their group made me uncomfortable. Her solution? Stop bringing me along. Alicia immediately switched off the speaker and gave Maria a half-hearted scolding. Whatever Maria said next made Alicia glance nervously at me, then quickly head to the balcony with her phone. Maybe it was the stillness of the night, but I clearly heard what Maria said. Oh right, Alicia, you left in such a rush earlier. Makoto wasn't in the best mood. Drank a few more glasses. Alicia stood on the balcony for half an hour. Every now and then I looked up, and there she was, outside the sliding glass door, phone in hand. With a soft and tender expression on her face, I no longer reacted the way I used to. No more uncontrollable jealousy about who was on the other end of the line. I just quietly cleaned up the table. That coat on the floor was an eyesore. I picked it up, and noticed a faint smear of blood on the white fabric. Not very visible, just a small mark, but it made my chest tighten. Was Alicia hurt? Chapter 3. Back in those days, when the welfare system was far from perfect, competition for resources at the orphanage was brutal. I was always quiet and passive as a child, never fought, never demanded, so I often went hungry. But Alicia, she didn't care about looking ladylike. She'd fight tooth and nail just to snatch me a bowl of plain rice porridge. I still remember her holding that bowl in both hands, handing it to me while forgetting the blood trickling down her forehead. In middle school, when classmates mocked me for being an orphan, she fought a boy despite the obvious strength gap between the sexes, and came back bruised and bleeding. After the college entrance exam, she worked at a factory screwing bolts until her arm tendons became inflamed, just so she could buy me a phone. Every injury she had, it always felt like it was for me. That's why I can't stand seeing her hurt. Right then, Alicia hung up the phone. As she slid the balcony door shut, I walked up to her, holding her coat. Did you get hurt somewhere? Why is there blood? She looked a bit confused, but the moment her eyes landed on the stain I pointed at, her expression turned visibly unnatural. She snatched the coat back and turned her head, avoiding eye contact. It's probably from my period. I must have stained it by accident. She practically ran off to the bathroom, even leaving her phone behind in her rush. A notification chimed. I hesitated for a moment, but still unlocked the screen. The password had always been our shared birthday, a date two parentless kids promised to celebrate together when we were little. The screen lit up with Makoto's profile picture, a photo of him skiing in Hokkaido, confident and radiant. In the background, you could just make out Alicia's stunning side profile. Last year, when she was just acknowledged by the Liu family, they went to Japan for a family vacation. The Liu and Ito families had been close for generations, so the trip made sense. If she had been honest with me back then, I wouldn't have thought much of it. But now I learned, Makoto had gone too. I zoned out for a moment, only realizing my eyes had welled up when the screen started to blur. The chat window showed a voice call that had just ended 10 minutes ago, a half-hour-long one. They clearly had plenty to talk about, long enough for Alicia to stand out on the balcony, enduring mosquito bites just to keep chatting. Then came the most recent message. Sorry about earlier, those girls pushed us into doing a cross-cup toast. And I accidentally spilled on your shirt. I was only trying to wipe it off. Touching your chest really wasn't intentional, but why did your face turn red? The cutesy little bear emoji bowing in apology only made it worse. As a man, I immediately understood what he was talking about. Yeah, right. Like that wasn't on purpose. But what bothered me more was the fact that Alicia didn't reject such a ridiculous, intimate request. Worse, she blushed. And toward me. She chose to hide it, as if she had something to be guilty for. Neglect, concealment, lies. She was no longer the Alicia who once loved with sincerity and intensity. But maybe it was tonight's constant stream of gut punches. Maybe it was the accumulation of disappointments over the past 6 months. But I found myself, not that heartbroken. The stabbing pain in my chest began to dull into numbness. I put the phone down and returned to the bedroom. Alicia came out of the shower, crawled into bed, and hugged me from behind. She must have seen that her message had been read. So she whispered softly into my ear, trying to make peace. You've been acting jealous over nothing lately. I only kept it from you because I didn't want you to overthink. Makoto always talks nonsense. You can't take him seriously. I subtly edged closer to the edge of the bed, saying nothing. Everyone was trying to throw me a farewell party tonight. That's why I couldn't be with you. There's less than a month left. You got your visa, right? Alicia had always wanted me to go abroad with her, but what she didn't know was that I had just emailed the school to request a deferral. I would continue studying, but not with her. Why aren't you saying anything? It was just a cross-cup toast. What's the big deal? Just a needle prick of a thing, but needle pricks hurt the most. Eyes shut. I spoke without emotion. Of course, it's your freedom. She seemed stung by how indifferent I sounded. Alicia threw the blanket aside and sat up sharply. First it was endless suspicion. Now you're giving me the cold shoulder. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is to deal with everyone every day? Still not talking. They were right about you. You're just a petty man. She stormed out. The bedroom door slamming like thunder. Noise erupted from the living room. The AC turned on and off. The TV volume climbed higher and higher. When I still didn't react, there was one final bang. The remote control slammed hard onto the coffee table. I pulled the blanket over my head, recalling every time I had gotten upset. That time Makoto got drunk and hospitalized, and Alicia stayed to watch over him. That time I found 2 identical razors in her shopping order. Every tear I choked back. Every time I lost control. All I got in return were Alicia's increasingly impatient reassurances. There's nothing between me and Makoto. I rejected him clearly before I was even accepted back into the Liu family, didn't I? Fine, I won't do it again next time. But this time. And next time. And every time. She never changed. Disappointment had finally reached its limit. Forget it, I thought. Chapter 4. By the time I woke up the next morning, Alicia was already gone. I went to campus first to submit a request to move back into the dorms. Then I stopped by the restaurant where I used to work part-time and asked if I could return. The boss, seeing I was hardworking and reliable, agreed without hesitation. Originally, the plan was to go abroad with Alicia. I thought I'd slowly pay her back later. She was a golden phoenix among a flock of chickens, no longer the helpless orphan she once was. The more I recognized the distance between us, the more inferior I felt. I've always had a strong sense of pride. I never accepted expensive gifts, not even the upscale apartment we'd been living in. I only moved there because Alicia insisted. But now that we've decided to part ways, the study abroad expenses she was going to cover temporarily, I'd need to save up myself through work-study programs abroad. Clearly, Alicia had also become more aware of the difference in our statuses. For example, today, she showed up at the restaurant where I worked, surrounded by her friends. The moment she saw me in my server's uniform, shame and discomfort swept across her face. Well, doing work-study now. Such pride. Maria sneered. As usual. Makoto, on the other hand, casually patted my shoulder with mock friendliness. Oh, come on. George has been working here for a while, hasn't he? How about recommending us some good dishes? Today, he was dressed in the latest LV Western cowboy collection. The refined cut and design screamed luxury. Even every strand of his hair seemed perfectly in place, exuding effortless ease. And me, wearing a second or third-hand waiter's uniform, with nothing but the fatigue of a sleepless night etched on my face. A waiter like him probably hasn't even tasted this stuff before. Well, maybe the leftovers from customers, if he's lucky. Laughter erupted from the table. 1,000 eyes scanned me from head to toe like sharp knives. Alicia could no longer hold her composure. She snapped. Enough. Though everyone present came from wealthy backgrounds, none of them could match the Liu family's status. The moment Alicia spoke, the whole table fell silent. She grabbed my wrist and whispered through gritted teeth. Didn't I tell you to stop working part-time? You're my boyfriend now. Stop doing things that are so beneath you. Forget it. Just go change clothes and come eat with us. Her sharp manicured nails dug into my skin. I winced and pulled away. Sorry, I'm on duty now. Alicia's eyes widened, voice trembling with restrained rage. Are you trying to embarrass me even more? Having a waiter for a boyfriend was a disgrace to her. Realizing that was oddly freeing. The girl standing in front of me was no longer the Alicia I once loved. The Alicia I loved used to praise how I could make even an ugly server's uniform look good. She'd devour the leftovers I brought from work, happily saying her boyfriend was the best. Always thinking of her, even with the smallest things. I put on a professional smile and said, if you're uncomfortable, I can have a colleague serve you instead. Then I turned and walked away. Behind me, Alicia clenched her fists and led the group to a private riverside booth. I didn't serve them. I asked a coworker I was on good terms with to take over. After all, that crowd always tipped generously. Later, I walked past their booth carrying wine. The door was slightly ajar. Through the crack, I saw Alicia sitting at the head of the table, looking distracted. Why bother? Someone said. With your status now, there are tons of guys throwing themselves at you. Makoto's got looks and pedigree. Why cling to that broke nobody? Alicia took a sip of champagne and sighed with a helpless tone. Where else could he go? He's just a parentless orphan. I'm all he has. You've still got too much of a conscience. Haha. Alicia didn't refute it. She lowered her head, deep in thought. I chuckled to myself. In the end, love had faded. And all that remained was pity. Should I feel regret or relief? Chapter 5. After serving a table, I went to the restroom and splashed cold water on my face. Staring into the mirror, I saw a worn-out version of myself, 22 years old, haggard, lifeless. For over half a year now, I've been consumed by insecurity, constantly overthinking, mentally drained, almost no longer myself. Yes, I only had Alicia, but Alicia didn't only have me. We used to be two broken souls clinging to each other at the bottom of society, trying to find warmth and happiness in a life full of shattered glass. Alicia once said, George, I have only you and I only want you. But now, her world had changed. It was as if the whole universe had kissed her into fortune, surrounded by people, indulging in luxury and ease. Only I remained where we started. Behind me was emptiness, and even Alicia, once by my side, was drifting farther away. I only had her, but now, I didn't want her anymore. I didn't even notice when Makoto appeared behind me. His eyes met mine in the mirror. His smile polite on the surface, but laced with condescension. Heard everything, didn't you? What do you think you have to compete with me? Mr. Wong, you should know your place and walk away on your own. I let out a faint scoff, turned away, and dried my hands with a paper towel. Maybe the pampered air of the Ito family had never been brushed off by someone like me. His voice turned shrill with frustration. You're just clinging to her sympathy, shamelessly hanging on and dragging her down. If you really cared about her, you'd step aside. Step aside, I cut in. You mean like how you, the mighty Ito heir, don't even have the self-awareness to respect boundaries with a woman who has a boyfriend, and you're lecturing me about decency? You. I leaned in close and suddenly raised my hand. Startled, Makoto instantly shielded his head, but all I did was lightly toss the used paper towel into the trash bin behind him. So you do know what you did was something you'd get punched for. Looks like you do have some sense of shame after all. Of course, it takes two to tango. That's why I've never come after you as her actual boyfriend. But I suggest you show the same restraint and stop deliberately provoking me. I brushed past him and walked out. I was exhausted. No sleep the night before. A full day of hard work. The moment I got home and touched the pillow, I fell into a deep sleep. I didn't know how long I slept, but a sudden mumble startled me awake. Alicia, completely drunk, had thrown herself onto me, wrapping me tightly in her arms through the blanket. You don't love me anymore, do you? Not even afraid I'll be hurt. Her voice reeked of alcohol and trembled slightly. For a second, my heart softened, but the very next moment, her words tore it wide open again. I told you already. Nothing happened between Makoto and me. I swear I'm innocent. So why did you go picking a fight with him? During dinner just now, Makoto was so pissed, he said you provoked him first, and I was stuck in the middle, apologizing on your behalf the whole time. Sleep vanished instantly. I pushed her away. What did I do wrong? Why are you apologizing for me? Usually, she avoided discussing her status in the Liu family around me, but maybe the alcohol had loosened her tongue. Her breathing was a bit erratic. Of course I believe you wouldn't provoke him on purpose, but the Liu and Ito families have an international collaboration project lined up. My family wants me to take the lead on it. Do you think I dare offend Makoto right now? The Liu family may not have any sons, but I'm not their only daughter either. I have to seize every opportunity if I want a future at Liu Corp. You don't understand me. You don't even try to. Alicia's words blurred into slurs. And eventually, she passed out. In the dark, the senses become sharper, and I could smell the oud fragrance clinging to her body, a scent she never wore. The exact same one Makoto always used. Chapter 6. My dorm application was approved. I started packing my things. There wasn't much to take, 2 sets of clothes for each season, 3 boxes of second-hand textbooks from flea markets, and a handful of miscellaneous items. Alicia walked out of the bedroom just in time to see me crouched on the floor sorting things. A tightness gripped her chest as she rushed over in slippers. Voice hurried. "Where are you going?" I had just opened my mouth to tell her the truth when she snapped through clenched teeth. "You're a homeless orphan. Where could you possibly go without me?" Her words hit the one spot I had fought so hard to protect, my dignity. Because the people closest to you always know exactly where to stab. My shoulders trembled slightly where I crouched. Then Alicia seemed to realize, where else could he go? He must be preparing to go abroad. Realizing she had gone too far, Alicia stumbled over her words in an attempt to cover for herself. "That's not what I meant." When she saw me stuffing coat hangers into a box, she quickly changed the subject. "You don't need to take all this junk overseas. You don't even need to bring anything. I've got money, remember?" I didn't explain. I just kept packing in silence. Alicia grew increasingly irritated. Lately, George's attitude had been so cold. He only made breakfast for himself, stopped watching horror movies with her. But he had no parents, no close friends. She was his only source of comfort and support. A few fights and misunderstandings weren't enough to shake a bond over 10 years strong. George couldn't live without her. Of that, she was absolutely certain. The tense atmosphere in the apartment was suffocating. Alicia felt an inexplicable restlessness and decided to go out and meet some friends. This time, I didn't ask where she was going. When she leaned in to kiss my cheek goodbye, I lowered my head to look for something and dodged it. She scoffed and walked out without looking back. She had originally planned to share some good news. Maria, who'd once spoken to me so rudely, was now desperately begging for forgiveness, to stand up for me. Alicia had even swallowed her pride to plead with her cold, arrogant older sister, and secretly sabotaged the Seong family's new project as payback. All of it, she thought, was to make up for how distant she'd been lately, thinking of everything she'd done for George, only to get that cold face in return. Alicia clenched the steering wheel and slammed on the gas. Back in the apartment, I had just sealed the last box with packing tape when I received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was polite and courteous, someone claiming to represent Miss Lu's father, inviting me to the Lu family estate. The purpose was obvious, like something straight out of a soap opera. Hand me a blank check and say, "You're not good enough for my daughter." I could have declined, but I recalled that the Lu Corporation was planning to launch a charity initiative for orphanages. So I answered gently and agreed. Before I went, I stopped by a fruit store and bought a nicely wrapped gift basket worth over 200 yuan. The hillside villa complex was incredibly private. It took 3 rounds of questioning before the guards let me in. Then I carried the heavy basket uphill for another half hour, before finally reaching House 88, the Lu family's old residence. The butler opened the door, gave me a once-over, and handed me a pair of blue disposable shoe covers. He took the fruit basket from my hands and casually tossed it into a corner, suppressing my irritation. I followed him in. No matter how impressive the interior was, I kept my eyes forward, calm and composed. Mr. Lu looked barely over 50 but was clearly well-maintained, dressed in an expensive polo shirt, practicing indoor golf. "First time here? Not bad. At least you're not nervous." He didn't even look up as he spoke, still focused on his swing. I wasn't sure what exactly he wanted from me, so I decided to get straight to my point. "Mr. Lu, I heard you're considering expanding your philanthropic work to improve your company's public image. I hope you'll consider supporting our orphanage. After all, your daughter grew up there too." Mr. Lu chuckled. "You're a sharp one." "Ah, purposeful. I like that." "All right, then. I won't beat around the bush either. I'll sponsor the orphanage, but you have to break up with Alicia." Chapter 7. As expected, the rich really do love playing this game. I agreed without hesitation. "Sure." Only then did Mr. Lu finally turn to look at me, his eyes filled with doubt. "You two have known each other for over a decade. You're really willing to walk away, just like that? Not even a shred of hesitation?" Clearly, he didn't believe me. "Don't worry, Mr. Lu. I'm not going to agree now just to tattle to your daughter later. Of course, if a little hesitation would reassure you, and maybe get a bit more funding for the orphanage, then I'm happy to play the part again." Mr. Lu chuckled heartily. "You're quite amusing." "It's a shame." He didn't finish the sentence, but I knew what he meant. "It's a shame that someone like me, born into poverty, wasn't even qualified to marry into the Lu family. Not even as a live-in son-in-law. I'll increase the donation, on one condition. You keep this from Alicia until she's safely abroad. I don't want any drama before she leaves, no impulsive decisions that might ruin her future. After all, I'm considering passing the company on to her." I'd thought about ending things many times over these past months, but she had been there for over a decade of my life. Not just as a lover, but as a friend, a confidant, and family. Every time I tried to open my mouth to say goodbye, all the emotional preparation I'd done would crumble in an instant. I'd chicken out before the first word left my lips, but now, Mr. Liu wanted me to keep it from her. Maybe that was for the best, because real goodbyes never come with a wave. Then again, I was overthinking. Alicia wouldn't do something foolish for me. And one more thing, he added. Never tell her I asked you to do this. It took me so long to get my daughter back. I don't want anything to push her away from me. In that moment, the sincerity in his eyes shook me a little. He no longer looked like a calculating businessman, just a father full of love for his child, a kind of love I had never known. Okay, I said. The door suddenly swung open from the outside. I turned around, and there stood a slender girl. Her features bore some resemblance to Alicia's, but hers were more striking and sharply defined. Even without makeup, she was effortlessly stunning. She looked up at me slightly, her gaze cold, but not quite hostile. It was Alicia's sister, Willow, the campus legend, though she'd already graduated. Threads about her still dominated the school forums. Have I never taught you to knock before entering a room? Get out. Mr. Liu's fatherly gentleness vanished in a flash, replaced with a thunderous roar. Willow didn't budge. She lazily raised her hand and tapped the door with a single knuckle. That only made Mr. Liu angrier. Seeing that I had already achieved my goal, I quietly slipped out of the brewing storm between father and daughter. Just as I stepped out, a loud slap echoed from behind the closed door. Downstairs, the butler was already waiting. Mr. Wang, the young lady asked me to arrange a driver to take you home. I nodded politely, while he called for the car. I stepped outside to wait, taking off the blue shoe covers. I tossed them into the trash bin at the edge of the courtyard. That's when I saw it, the fruit basket I brought, still sitting there, unopened. Damn rich people, I thought. No need to trouble yourselves. I'll walk, I said calmly. Then reached into the bin, pulled the basket out, and walked away without looking back. The same basket I huffed and puffed up the hill for 30 minutes. I was now carrying all the way back down. I looked up at the sky. This time, I didn't just think it, I shouted. Damn rich people. Can't even show the basic decency of respect. Maybe it was the sunlight, but suddenly, my eyes welled up uncontrollably. Just then, an orange sports car, which had already driven past me, slammed on the brakes, then backed up, and pulled up beside me. Chapter 8. The car window rolled down. It was Willow. She didn't turn her head, just gave me a glimpse of her side profile. Red lips curled slightly. Get in. I'll give you a ride out. I didn't move. Alicia Liu rarely talked about the Liu family, especially this older sister who was just 1 year a senior. But Willow had quite the reputation, spoiled, arrogant, and absolutely not someone to mess with. I pretended not to hear her and kept walking forward with my head down. Willow let out a mocking laugh and followed at an unhurried pace. That illegitimate girl doesn't know you're here yet, does she? I came to a sudden halt. Illegitimate girl? Was she talking about Alicia? Looks like she didn't tell you. Then I guess she also didn't mention that Makoto is going abroad with her. I clenched the ribbon handle of the gift box tightly, my mind a chaotic mess. Alicia kept even this from me. Oh right, the old man didn't tell you either. He's not sponsoring for some corporate PR image. He's after the land your orphanage is sitting on, isn't he? I couldn't hold it in any longer and turned my head to look at her. Click, the car doors unlocked. I stopped hesitating and got into the passenger seat. Willow pulled out a tissue and handed it to me, her tone careless. A grown man crying on the street. You're not even embarrassed? I didn't bother analyzing the ridicule in her words, just asked in a low voice, what did you mean by all that? Which part? Every single word. Your girlfriend is an illegitimate daughter. She's going abroad with the guy the Liu family wants for a future alliance. You not only got played, you're also helping that old man count his money. Short and sharp, packed with information. The ride down the hill took only 5 minutes, but it felt like a century. By the time we exited the villa community, my brain was still lagging. Anger and grief churned inside me, and Willow stoked the fire beside me. Even a kid wouldn't be this easy to fool. You're really something. I felt like I was cursed when it came to the Liu family. Every one of them had deceived me, used me, mocked me. I glanced at Willow through the rearview mirror. Half her face was swollen red. The Liu father who wore such a loving expression when talking about Alicia actually hit his other daughter like this. A bitter malice surged in me, one that I almost despised myself for, but I snapped back. You're both his daughters. Funny how the one he raised for over 20 years gets treated worse than the illegitimate one he just acknowledged. The smile on Willow's lips froze instantly. She didn't say another word. A sudden break near the subway station. She spoke softly, get out. As I shut the car door, the sports car roared off, leaving behind only a deafening rumble. I didn't take the subway. I wandered aimlessly for a long time. I thought about how Alicia always avoided talking about her mother. Makoto's certainty when we argued in the restroom. Everything Willow said was probably true. By the time Alicia said she'd come pick me up, I had already arrived at the ramen stand where we used to splurge for better meals. The owners were a warm old couple. They tossed an extra sausage into my bowl and asked, "Where's your girlfriend today? You two used to be inseparable." We broke up. I finished the whole bowl and even gulped down a few mouthfuls of soup before Alicia arrived. She frowned, her pretty brows tightening, and looked around the area with thinly veiled disgust. After checking the bench several times to make sure there were no grease stains, she still chose to stand. The old lady chuckled and teased, "What do you mean, broke up? Looks fine to me. Couples fight all the time. We've been arguing our whole lives. Still going strong." "What breakup?" Alicia asked in disbelief. Chapter 9. Sensing something was off, the old lady quickly turned to greet other customers. I looked at the vibrant bustle around us, took a breath, and said, "I was just talking nonsense." Alicia felt a sudden tug in her chest. Her instincts told her George was acting strange. She was about to ask when I continued, "Do you still remember the future we once imagined together?" Seeing her dazed expression, I knew she didn't, but I still did. We didn't need a lot of money, just a lot of love. Like the couple who owned the ramen stand, simple days, shared struggles, growing old together. "Let's go," I said. Alicia was driving a brand new car, just picked up today. As soon as I got into the passenger seat, I caught that familiar scent of ebony and oud. Makoto had already been here, maybe just moments ago. I didn't ask. I simply rolled down the window for some air. Along the way, Alicia brought up all kinds of topics, trying to make conversation, but I remained unenthusiastic. She was a little annoyed, but when she caught the emptiness in my eyes through the rearview mirror, she swallowed her frustration. Forget it, she really had been neglecting him lately. Let him sulk a bit. It was understandable. He was supposed to be her partner for life. Why fuss over this? Hasn't he always envied people who got to study abroad? That's why she'd chosen the UK specifically, home to the best design programs. Leaving a bit earlier, that should make him happy, right? Thinking this, she took out a plane ticket from the glove compartment with a flattering tone. "Here's your ticket. You've already packed. Anyway, we'll fly out in 3 days. I bought the tickets already. You've never flown before, right?" I booked first class. I didn't look at her. I just reached out and took the ticket. Actually, I had seen the lighter Makoto had deliberately left inside the compartment, but that didn't matter anymore. Just before we pulled into the underground parking garage, Alicia's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID, cleared her throat unnaturally, and said, "Why don't you head up first? I need to register the car with the building management." I said nothing and got out of the car, but Alicia didn't drive toward the management office. I stood alone for a long time, long enough for the streetlights to come on, long enough for the lights in the tall buildings ahead to fill with the glow of thousands of homes, none of which were mine. Maybe I was just someone fated to be rootless, with nowhere to come from, and nowhere to return to. I wiped my burning eyes and tore the plane ticket into pieces. Chapter 10. It had been a long time since I slept so deeply. By the time I woke up, it was already noon the next day. It seemed Alicia hadn't come back. I thought about the orphanage and figured I should drop by, at least to give the director a heads up. Apparently, I had volunteer work scheduled for today. The kids were all dressed in brand new clothes. The director beamed, the corners of his eyes wrinkling with joy. The Liu family is really generous. They bought the kids so many school supplies. They even said any child who gets into a top university in the future will have their tuition fully covered. I looked at his delighted expression, wanting to speak several times but holding back. "Alicia, that child hasn't been back with you for over half a year now, right?" I was hoping to thank her properly. She must have asked her sister to sponsor us. "Willow, she came." I stood up and looked around. Finally, I saw Willow crouched among the children, using a tree branch to draw little turtles on the ground with them. As if sensing my gaze, Willow suddenly looked up and met my eyes with a raised brow. I quickly looked away. What I'd said yesterday had been in a fit of anger, and I'd regretted it soon after. As an orphan, I never feared being mocked for being poor or pitted for my misfortune. What I hated most was when people said I was unwanted by my parents. Yes, I was a child abandoned at the gate of an orphanage. The pain from that kind of origin haunts a person for life. It becomes a fatal vulnerability. I knew this all too well, which is why I shouldn't have used it as a weapon to hurt someone else. But Willow seemed to have forgotten all about it. As if nothing happened, she casually walked over to me. The director was still talking beside me. "Why don't you give Alicia a call? You're both about to go abroad, and I'd like to see her one more time." Seeing the hopeful look in his eyes, I couldn't bear to say no, so I dialed her number. It rang for a long time before she finally answered. Alicia's voice was hushed. "What is it?" she asked. "Come back to the orphanage," I said. "We're about to leave the country. We won't be seeing anyone here for a long time." There was a short silence on the other end before Alicia replied. I'm at school right now. I still need to get a document stamped by the academic office. I really can't get away. Okay. I had expected her to refuse and hung up immediately. Willow had been listening to the whole thing with a smile, completely unfazed despite the multiple glares I shot at her. In the end, I couldn't hold it anymore. I clenched my jaw and snapped at her. What is your Lou family planning? The orphanage will never move. Every blade of grass and tree here is built on our sweat, our memories. Willow's eyes curved as she gave an innocent, almost angelic smile. Don't blame me. Today's sponsorship is my personal decision. It has nothing to do with the Lou Corporation. I froze, unsure what she really meant. But Willow didn't give me time to think. She leaned in slightly, her eyes clear yet teasing. You get mad when people call you dumb, but you really are too naive. You think he'll let you move. He won't even leave you that escape route. I stared at her in confusion. What do you mean? You want to know? She turned to walk away. Then come with me. Chapter 11. There was no time to think. I rushed to speak to the director, asking him to call me first if the Lou Corporation showed any intent to make a donation. I followed behind Willow at a steady pace, my eyes studying her back. She was tall, slim, almost fragile. The wind lifted the ends of her hair, her skirt, like it could blow her away at any moment. Why is she so thin? I couldn't help but wonder. Paired with the plain black Volkswagen she was driving today, she gave off the broken elegance of a fallen heiress. But when I got closer, I saw her smiling, eyes curved like crescent moons. You walk so slow. Didn't eat or what? I wasn't in the mood to joke. I got in the car and cut to the chase. Can you tell me now? Willow retracted her smile and replied softly. The Lou Corporation will make a large charitable donation. A small portion will go to the children as living expenses, but most of it will be used for a pointless renovation of the orphanage buildings. But once that money is in the orphanage's hands, of course the staff will want to put it to real use. And that's when they'll contact the media to make a big deal out of it, accusing the orphanage of misusing funds that were supposedly designated for renovations. They'll spin the truth until white becomes black. Of course, even if you don't actually do any of that, there'll be reports claiming the construction materials used are substandard, or that staff are engaged in shady backroom dealings. That old man has plenty of dirty tricks. In the end, the place will be forced to shut down, the kids scattered to other homes, and this commercially valuable land will be reclaimed. After changing the zoning, it'll end up in his hands. I listened quietly, but my heart tightened with every word. I almost destroyed the children's home. It was a long time before I found my voice again. But why are you helping me? Willow didn't answer. Not until we pulled into the hospital parking lot did she speak again. Come on, time to enjoy the show. I followed her in. The top floor of the hospital housed private VIP suites, the kind I'd only seen in movies. It was a whole different world from the alcohol-scented, noisy chaos downstairs. Willow walked straight to the innermost room. She didn't enter, just pushed the door open a crack, angling it so I could see inside. Inside, Makoto was lying on the bed, looking pale and weak. Grab me a peach, will you? Alicia, who was supposed to be at the academic office, had her back to the door. Her tone was tinged with helplessness. I heard you. Young master, I told you not to drink. And look now, gastric bleeding. Think you'll still make that flight the day after tomorrow? No problem. Once we're in the UK, we'll get engaged. My dad's already agreed. Once we're engaged, the Ito-Lu joint project will be ours. All right, once we're there, I'll keep you off alcohol. I won't let you end up in the hospital again. Alicia smoothed out his collar, then went to wash a peach. She peeled it skillfully, cut it into small pieces, and fed them to Makoto one by one while reminding him. Chew thoroughly before swallowing. It's easier on your stomach. That tender, attentive look, I knew it well. When I'd fallen ill before, Alicia had been just as careful. Even the glass of water she brought me was tested for temperature first. But watching this scene now, I didn't feel the heartbreak I thought I would. I blanked out for a moment, then quickly turned my gaze to Willow. We stood close, so close that if I leaned in just slightly, I could whisper directly into her ear. What are you trying to do? I asked under my breath. Didn't I say? She replied, tilting her head, lips curved. I invited you to watch a performance. Then, deliberately raising her voice a little, see how your girlfriend, who couldn't spare a moment to visit the orphanage, is spending all night taking care of someone else. Her mocking tone lit a fire inside me. Do you think this is fun? I grabbed her shoulder and growled through gritted teeth. Chapter 12. Willow looked up at me, a flash of surprise flickering in her eyes. Hearing the commotion outside, Alicia turned around, only to see me, trembling with rage. George. She flung Makoto's hand away and stood up abruptly, chasing after me. I turned my head to look at her, my gaze ice cold. Words like, let me explain, caught in her throat. Too feeble, too late. She couldn't get them out. Willow, having watched her fill of drama, shrugged innocently. Need help cleaning up this mess? I shot her a look of pure disgust. Get lost. Alicia pulled me away. I didn't resist, just followed in silence, calm and quiet. In the car, Alicia's breathing was so chaotic it lost its rhythm. She would have preferred me yelling, accusing her, screaming at the top of my lungs. At least that would mean I still cared enough to demand an explanation, but I didn't. She checked the rearview mirror again and again, searching my face for any trace of emotion. There was none. Finally, she broke the silence. George, I need Makoto's recommendation if I want a real shot at securing the project. Until then, I have to play nice with him, but I've never crossed the line with him. Not once. As for the fake engagement, we were always going to call it off later. I just never found the right time to talk to you, especially since you've been so distant lately. I couldn't help but let out a faint laugh. So it's my fault now. No. Alicia waved her hands frantically, her words spilling out in a jumble. It's my fault for not communicating well. But please, believe me, everything I've done is for our future. Once I secure the project and gain control of Lu Corp's overseas market, you won't need to doubt anything. Just focus on your studies. Do what you love, leave the rest to me. We'll be financially free. We'll be the happiest couple in the world. I looked at her and asked. And before that, any price is acceptable. Alicia answered with conviction, like she was making an oath. Whatever it takes, no matter the cost. I want what I deserve. Why should Willow, just because she was the other Lu daughter, get everything handed to her? Why should she look at Alicia like she was trash? Alicia had suffered so much. This was her one chance to rise above, and she had to seize it. So what if she got engaged to Makoto? If it came to it, even secretly marrying him without telling George was fine. The process didn't matter, as long as the ending was beautiful. After all, George would always stay by her side. Alicia's eyes burned with hope, waiting desperately for my reply, but I only smiled, calm, and finally at peace. If this was what she wanted so badly, then I wouldn't get in her way. You can't erase over a decade of feelings overnight. Before we were lovers, we were family, we were friends, we were each other's only support. From that place of old connection, I despised my own softness. Yet I still genuinely wished her well, that she could go abroad and succeed in everything she planned. I just wouldn't be going with her. From now on, there would be no more us. I turned my head away, avoiding her gaze, and said softly, "You haven't packed yet, right? Let's head back." Alicia was stunned at first, then nodded vigorously, tears spilling down her cheeks. Chapter 13. Back home. I quietly watched her pack. When I saw she was planning to bring the photo album, I gently said, "Leave it. It's heavy." Alicia obediently put it back, then turned to me with a smile. "Okay, we'll take even more when we get there." She had never traveled anywhere with George before. In the past, it was because they were poor. Later, she was busy expanding her network, maintaining relationships. Now, just thinking about starting a new life in a place they'd never even dared dream of visiting before made her heart race with excitement. The day before departure, Alicia canceled all her dinner appointments, even turned down her father's invitation to dine at the old Lu estate. She spent the day watching movies with George, one after another. When the horror films came on, George no longer pulled her into his arms. When the emotional ones played, he didn't offer his sleeve for her to wipe away tears. Alicia couldn't help feeling disappointed, but the future was long. As long as George stayed by her side, things would get better eventually, wouldn't they? The day they were to leave, it poured. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, my gaze vacant. Alicia wrapped her arms around me from behind, her voice gentle and lingering. "What are you thinking about so deeply?" I didn't answer. She went on. "The driver's downstairs waiting. Say goodbye to this place, we're starting over." Right then, a call came in from Lu's father. Alicia's eyes flickered, and unlike before, she didn't step away to take it in secret. The more she listened, the darker her face became. Finally, she hung up and said awkwardly, "My dad wants me to go pick up Makoto. He's just recovered from a serious illness." The driver called in sick. "And with this rain, go," I said. "There's no room for 3 people's luggage in the car anyway. I'll get there on my own." She zipped up my jacket, guilt in her eyes. "Then call a cab later. And don't forget your umbrella. I'll see you at the airport." Alicia left. Just before she walked out, I leaned in and gave her a light hug. When she moved to hug me back tightly, I had already let go. Through the window, I watched the Lu family's Alfred van drive away. Yesterday, I had already returned the call from that unknown number who had reached out to me before, and relayed today's plan to Lu's father. And Alicia hadn't disappointed me. After a brief hesitation, she chose to leave me behind and go to Makoto. I began moving my luggage. After dragging all the suitcases to the elevator lobby, I firmly shut the door without looking back. The days I spent here weren't particularly happy. There was nothing worth missing. Cab fare was sky high in this weather. Since school wasn't too far away, I gritted my teeth. I'd make a few more trips on foot, clamping the umbrella under one arm, I struggled to carry a waxed cardboard box back and forth for the third time. By then, my pants were soaked, and the strands of hair hanging over my forehead were dripping wet from the rain. My phone buzzed many times in my pocket until it finally died. I couldn't spare a hand to answer it, and I wouldn't have answered anyway. When I moved the last box, the rain finally stopped. I folded up the umbrella and looked up at the clearing sky. A plane flew overhead. I didn't know if it was heading for the UK. I lifted my hand toward the sky in a gesture of relief, waving goodbye. Alicia, I wish you the best, from afar. Chapter 14. Airport VIP Lounge. Alicia stared out at the rain, now falling even harder, a growing unease taking root in her chest. Makoto sat down beside her. She quietly shifted to the side, putting space between them. Why don't we go check in first? He suggested. Alicia shook her head. George isn't here yet. I'm waiting for him. She called his phone, but all she got was the robotic voice repeating over and over. I'm sorry, the number you dialed is unavailable. Anxiety and dread began to crawl over her like vines. Makoto noticed the tremble in her fingers as she tapped the screen and tried to soothe her. Don't worry, maybe there's just traffic. It's raining pretty hard out there. That made sense. George was fine when they last saw each other. She was probably just overthinking. Still, even as she reassured herself, her fingers never stopped dialing, until the airport broadcast urged them to board, and the line changed to, the phone you dialed is powered off. She shot up from her seat, startling Makoto. I'm going to find George. You go ahead without me. She could hear her own breath, ragged and panicked, and her heart pounding wildly in her chest. Makoto grabbed her wrist, no longer the gentle and patient man he had always portrayed. His voice turned cold and firm. Alicia, I'm only offering you this partnership opportunity once. Alicia froze. She had never imagined choosing between her future and George. Both were things she believed she must have. But now, at this moment, she hesitated. If she turned around now, George would always be there, waiting. But this opportunity, it was one in a million. I'll just secure my footing and win him back afterward, she told herself. She turned back and forced a smile at Makoto. Let's go. We'll miss the flight. On the plane, the seat beside her remained empty. Makoto casually took it without asking. Alicia stared blankly at her phone screen, as if making a final prayer, silently begging for George to call her back. Makoto glanced at the screen, then snatched the phone to get a closer look. He scoffed. Your wallpaper is ugly. It was a blurry photo taken with a knockoff phone 2 years ago, bought for only 1,000 yuan. She had secretly snapped a picture of George's back under a street lamp, walking just ahead of her. What's your phone password? I'll change it for you. How about that picture we took at Mount Fuji last year? The moment she said the numbers aloud, it hit her. That sequence was today's date. It was George's birthday, the one they had chosen together. After she reclaimed her real identity, she got a new, official birthday. She had completely forgotten about this one, but George hadn't. This used to be their day. Every year, they'd share a cheap cream cake and make the same wish. Alicia and George, forever together. She unbuckled her seatbelt and stumbled forward. A flight attendant doing the final boarding checks was caught off guard as Alicia clutched her arm. Panic etched into her face, shaking everyone around her. All they heard was her desperate plea. I need to get off the plane, let me off. Chapter 15. The airplane streaked across the sky, leaving behind a beautiful contrail. There was no time for me to wallow in grief. I returned to the dorm, packed my things, tidied up my emotions, and rushed to my part-time job at the restaurant. There were a lot of customers today, and not enough staff. I felt like the spinning top from Inception, setting tables, greeting guests, serving dishes, non-stop. It wasn't a bad thing. When I was busy, my mind was blank. No room for sorrow. What I didn't expect was to run into Willow again. Today, she was especially well-dressed. Flawless makeup, a tailored skirt suit made of expensive fabric, everything about her screamed elegance. A few other equally polished men and women accompanied her. The moment she saw me, a flicker of surprise flashed across her face, but she quickly regained composure. Judging by her expression, this was just a chance encounter. I cursed inwardly. The Liu family and I were clearly born under opposing stars, especially her. Neither of our past 2 meetings ended well. I'd better avoid a third one if I could. After all, Willow was well known. Aside from being beautiful, she had no other virtues. I subtly motioned for a nearby coworker to take the table and turned to head to the back, pretending not to recognize her. George, Willow called. I quickened my pace like I was fleeing. Behind me, I heard someone ask her, "Someone you know?" "A friend," she replied. That surprised me a little. First, I didn't think we were anywhere close to being called friends. All our past interactions were awkward at best. Second, I never expected someone like Willow, a lady from a prestigious family, to acknowledge me in public. It wasn't that I was ashamed of my job. It just reminded me of something from before. Last year, Alicia and some friends had also come to this restaurant. Back then, no one knew the two of them were related. When she pretended not to know me, the way she avoided eye contact made me second-guess myself for a long time. Eventually, I convinced my insecure self that Alicia had changed, and for the sake of her dignity, I quit that job. Now hiding in the kitchen, I suddenly smacked myself on the forehead. Idiot. People like Willow and her friends probably leave great tips. Only a fool wouldn't take their table. I offered to take over the guests, and my coworker gladly agreed. After all, I'd let him serve a table of rich playboys once, and he'd gotten a nice tip out of it, though instead of leaving it on the bill or table, they just tossed it onto him like confetti. Willow didn't make things difficult for me. In fact, she didn't even look at me when ordering. She listened calmly to the group's conversation, most of it about business partnerships. I didn't pay much attention. I just watched her sitting there quietly, occasionally smiling and nodding. She looked composed, elegant, intellectual, so different from the proud and willful woman I'd met before. She leaned toward the person next to her, whispering something. That person left and returned with a bottle of wine. Only then did Willow call me over. Open this, please. There was a 500 yuan corkage fee for bringing your own wine. I was thrilled and quickly fetched a decanter. While I was pouring, Willow gestured that she wouldn't be drinking, then softly said, "Thank you." She didn't say another word until the group got up and left. By 11 p.m., the restaurant was closed. I changed and got ready to head back to school, only to find it was raining outside. At the corner of the street, a low-profile black sedan was parked, its tail lights glowing. A woman stood beside it, holding an umbrella low over her face. I hadn't brought an umbrella and just wanted to hurry through the rain, but that figure suddenly called out to me. Her voice especially soft and pleasant in the dark. "George." Chapter 16. I looked more closely. The woman raised her umbrella a few inches, revealing Willow's delicate, palm-sized face. The night had turned cold. She'd added a classic camel trench coat over her outfit, with her slender legs still bare beneath, but she still looked cold. Her fingers, gripping the umbrella, trembled slightly. It had been over 2 hours since she and her group left the restaurant. I had no idea why she was still here. She walked up and stopped in front of me, nudging the umbrella toward me. "I'll drive you," she said. I didn't understand what she wanted. Everything she had done lately had been strange. Donating to the orphanage under her own name, bringing me to catch Alicia and Makoto together, going out of her way to fetch wine that no one ended up drinking. Even the tip, clearly planned and planted. I wasn't so naive that I didn't notice. I asked flatly, without emotion, "What exactly do you want from me?" "To apologize," she replied. "I don't need one, but you need that orphanage funding, don't you?" Her gaze was far too sincere to be mocking. Something compelled me to get in the car. Inside, it was warm and dry, filled with a pleasant scent. It could have been the car's fragrance, or maybe it was hers. Willow asked about the orphanage's current difficulties and resource shortages. I answered her clearly and methodically. In just a few short exchanges, she had already worked out specific support plans with me. Then, silence. At a red light, she turned her head toward me. "If you need," she suddenly said, "I can offer you a job." I was stunned and met her gaze. Her skin was smooth and delicate, almost like a soft veil under the dim glow of the streetlight. She continued, "Don't misunderstand. It would be under the name of a high-tech startup I've recently invested in. It has nothing to do with the Lu Corporation. It's a product design position with decent pay, enough to support your graduate studies." I didn't understand why Willow would help me. I certainly wasn't so talented that someone like her would just hand me an opportunity like that. If she were anything like Lu's father, this could easily be another trap. Still, I had to admit, I was tempted. It wasn't just about solving my current financial problems. It could also help with my future career path. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. "I saw your project from that innovation competition back in your sophomore year," she said. "It didn't win, too far off from mainstream aesthetics, but it fits perfectly with our company's vision." If she hadn't brought it up, I'd almost forgotten about that project that didn't even make it past the prelims. I never imagined Willow had seen it. "I'll think about it." Maybe it was the rain, but Willow drove slowly. A 10-minute drive stretched into 20, though outside vehicles weren't normally allowed on campus. The guard let her through. She finally stopped in front of my dorm. Inside the car, the lighting was dim, casting her features into deeper contrast. She handed me the umbrella. "Think it over and let me know." She recited a phone number. I reached for my phone to save it, then remembered it was still dead from earlier. Not that anyone was trying to contact me. So Willow handed me her unlocked phone and winked. "Then I'll contact you." I typed in my number, thanked her quietly, and stepped out into the drizzle. The rain came down in soft, steady threads. I had only walked a few steps when I suddenly heard a voice scream my name, raw, broken, "George." A second later, a soaked, ice-cold figure threw their arms around me, crashing into me with such force it was more of a collision than a hug. Chapter 17. The scent on Alicia was far too familiar. My umbrella slipped from my hand. Instinctively, I pushed her away, only to feel how frighteningly cold her shoulder was. A flicker of pity passed through me, but after a brief hesitation, I still pushed her away, ruthlessly. Once the distance widened, I finally saw her eyes, bloodshot and trembling lips. "Happy birthday, George. Happy birthday." She spoke in broken, frantic words, lifting the cake in her hands like a child showing off a treasure. "I didn't get on the plane. I went home to find you, but you weren't there. Your phone was off. I've been waiting here for 6 hours. Can we eat cake and make a wish together, please?" Looking at the melting cream puddle in front of me, I was reminded of that night's reheated sticky rice ball. It hadn't even been a month, and now our roles had reversed. Alicia was finally experiencing how I felt that night. I stared at her, expressionless. 6 hours is nothing. I once waited through countless nights, until darkness gave way to dawn. This morning, when I stood at the window, you asked what I was thinking. Remember? I was thinking how wonderful it was to never again stand alone in the dark, nervously watching every passerby, just to see if one of them was you. Grief flooded Alicia's eyes. She rubbed her face, unsure whether the wetness came from tears or rain. "Can we start over?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Think about how we've relied on each other all these years. We can't live without each other. We used to be so good together." "Yes, we were." I cut her off. "But like you said, used to be. People shouldn't live trapped in memories." I never denied the love Alicia once gave me. In fact, she had been the only warmth in my shattered life. But the pain and destruction that followed also came from her. Alicia's body slumped like a mountain about to collapse, drained of strength. Tears and begging were useless. She quickly grasped at straws, her voice hoarse. "Did Willow say something to you? She's always driving a wedge between us. She was the one who took you to the hospital last time. And now I just saw you getting out of her car." Even now, she was still pushing the blame onto others, still avoiding the real problem. And I realized, I didn't even feel disappointed anymore. I didn't bother to respond. I scanned my keycard, walked into the building, and left her with a single sentence. "Everything's been said. Let's go our separate ways." I ignored her outstretched hand, trembling with the urge to hold on but unable to lift itself. I didn't look back at her face. The door shut behind me, sealing away the sound of rain and her muffled sobs. They say when you're enduring the cold, it means the cold is about to end. I had endured long enough, and now, it was over. Not far away, inside a parked car, Willow had witnessed everything. When she saw George walk into the dorm without once looking back, she finally unclenched her hands from the steering wheel. If he had spent even one more minute talking to that illegitimate girl, she might have lost control and rushed out, just like that night at the old Lou estate, when she'd kicked him out of the car but secretly followed behind, only to see him go home with Alicia. Terrified that he still had feelings for her, she dragged him to the hospital to intervene. Impulsive, shameful. She let out a self-mocking laugh and was about to drive away, when Alicia suddenly ran up and banged on the car window like a madwoman. "Willow, what right do you have to hate me? What right do you have to get close to George? If you want the project, I'll give it to you. Why did you have to take away the person I love the most?" The accusation made Willow want to laugh. She rolled down the window, but didn't even bother turning to look Alicia in the face. With a cold smirk, she replied, "Give it to me, you idiot. I gave it to you." Did Alicia ever have the right to compete with her? Of course not. Had she schemed? Not really. She simply moved early, pushing forward the Ito partnership after realizing Makoto had feelings for Alicia. Then, when Lou's father asked her to hand the deal over to his beloved daughter, she graciously agreed, and threw in a few well-placed obstacles for good measure. Alicia was just a coward, someone who couldn't even reject a deal to her face, and later came begging for help behind the scenes. Exactly the kind of disappointment Willow expected. Given just a taste of opportunity, Alicia had clung to Makoto for profit. Her background was unimpressive, and so was her heart. It wasn't Willow's fault. Alicia still didn't understand, but Willow had already driven off. Tonight's moonlight put her in an oddly good mood, even if, on this rainy night, the moon wasn't visible at all. Chapter 18. I had just returned to the dorm when my roommate came up to me. "George, why didn't you tell us today's your birthday?" I froze for a second. "How did you know?" I wasn't particularly close with my roommates. In fact, with everyone except Alicia, I deliberately kept my distance and avoided forming close relationships, perhaps out of insecurity, emotional detachment, or as a form of self-protection. I saw the cake downstairs when picking up my delivery. It had your name on it, so I brought it up. "Didn't you see my message?" I explained that my phone had died, and before I could say more, my roommates had already pulled me over to sit down. On the cake, it said, "George, wishing you happiness, not just on your birthday." I had just turned down a cake from Alicia, so who else could it be from? Before I could figure it out, My roommates had already opened the cake, turned off the lights, and urged me to make a wish. It was the first time I'd had this many people celebrate my birthday with me. My eyes stung a little, so I quickly shut them. I made the first wish in my life that didn't include Alicia. To be cherished by someone I'm wholeheartedly devoted to. To bloom in my own world. Over and over again. Life continued on. Business as usual. Everything went smoothly, except for Alicia's relentless attempts to get close to me. Giving me gifts in front of everyone, whether it was her homemade soup or a six-figure luxury watch, I threw it all into the trash. She sat in on my classes in secret, and I reported her to the professor for sneaking in. She dug out old photos in an attempt to spark nostalgia. I responded by deleting her and blocking her everywhere. One late night, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Alicia. Sobbing uncontrollably as she repeated my name again and again. She said she didn't want anything, she just wanted to go back to the past. I could hear Maria's voice in the background. Seriously? Still calling that guy? Good thing you broke up. He's manipulating you emotionally. Don't you see that? Just some broke-ass social climber. Fake as hell. The phone seemed to be slammed on the table, followed by the sounds of a fight breaking out. You wanna say that again? The noise on the other end became chaotic, glass breaking, shouting, people trying to break up the fight. I scratched my ear and hung up. The next day, when I went to the restaurant, the manager gave me an apologetic look. We'll give you 3 extra days of pay, but you won't need to come in anymore. Can I ask why? Because she invested in this place. Makoto walked up beside him, his eyes full of open mockery. What makes you think you're worth Alicia turning against everyone for? She even ended up in the hospital for you. I couldn't help but laugh. I asked back, did I make her do all that? Did I hold a knife to her throat? You. Makoto's eyes widened. His teeth clenched in fury. Don't think I don't see through your little push and pull act. I'm warning you, stay away from her. Or next time it won't just be your side job you lose. Your scholarship, your future career. I can ruin it all with a snap of my fingers. He lifted his chin, smug and superior. A true spoiled rich kid, never faced any real setbacks, and still thinks being a villain doesn't require brains. Sure, go ahead, Mr. Ito. Wreck my life. Leave me broke and kicked out of school. That'd be the perfect excuse for me to crawl back to Alicia. What do you think? Would she really say no? Makoto looked both furious and panicked, like he wanted to argue but didn't dare push me further. I suggest you stop coming after me. You're only making yourself look more pathetic. Even flaunting your background and groveling didn't get her to follow you. Oh, and I came here to resign anyway. Thanks for the extra pay. I'd been thinking a lot lately. The part-time job was exhausting and underpaid. Willow's offer was a much better opportunity. I collected my pay and walked off coolly, leaving behind the idiot Makoto who was still standing there stewing in his thoughts. Willow had added me on WeChat using my phone number, but she never pressured me to make a decision. I sent her a message to arrange a meeting about salary and working hours. After all, I was still a student and couldn't work every day. She replied quickly. 5 p.m. At the school gates. Chapter 19. I only found out after returning to school that there was a special lecture hosted by one of the university's outstanding alumni, and the invited speaker was Willow. I had to admit, she was truly impressive. Rumor had it that even during her student years, she founded an investment firm entirely on her own, without relying on the Liu family's name. In just 3 short years, she'd grown the company rapidly and was now considered a rising star in the industry. Of course, that wasn't the only gossip that followed her during college. The more popular talk had been about her dominating the campus confession wall with anonymous love declarations and similar rumors. She hadn't even graduated a full year. Yet here she was, already a representative of excellence. The lecture hall was packed to capacity. My roommates and I squeezed into the back row, and there was still a crowd standing behind us. As I looked at the stunning woman on stage, I found myself gradually losing focus. The first half of the talk was a bit dull, but near the end came the open Q&A session. One bold guy stood up and asked aloud, "Senior, you were a legend back in school. I heard you ripped up hundreds of love letters. Did you ever date anyone back then? Maybe someone from our university?" I wasn't interested. I lowered my head and fiddled with a loose thread on my sleeve. Suddenly, I felt a chill down my back. Looking up, I realized everyone in the room had turned to stare toward the back, following Willow's gaze. She was looking directly at me. Sorry, I got distracted for a second. No, I didn't date anyone, but the next one might just be from this school. She smiled. Next question. I was mentally scolding myself for the ridiculous thought that had just crossed my mind when my roommate suddenly nudged me. "George, I think Alicia's outside calling for you." Through the small glass window on the door, I saw Alicia waving her arm in a cast, looking ridiculous, like a clumsy baboon. At some point, I had stopped seeing her as pretty. If I didn't go out, I wouldn't put it past Alicia to charge in with her casted arm flailing around. I quickly squeezed my way out. Behind me, Willow watched coldly. It wasn't until I closed the door that she finally looked away. After just a few days, Alicia already had a bruise at the corner of her mouth. One even heavy foundation couldn't hide. She looked thinner too. Her figure now bore a faint resemblance to the sharp, somber look she had back when she lived in poverty. I heard Makoto came to see you. Did he threaten you? I haven't been in touch with him lately. I swear. Didn't even answer his calls. I even had someone else tell him not to bother me again. I wasn't in the mood to hear her prove her loyalty. I was about to leave when I glanced back at her arm. Don't get into fights. Your arm's already been injured once before. That made Alicia's eyes well up with tears. Her voice trembled. I knew it. You still care about me. As long as you still have even the tiniest bit of feeling for me, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win you back. There is a bit, I said. It's a mix of the bond from years of companionship, the friendship of growing up together, and the guilt I feel for the injury you got because of me. I shook my head and went on. There are many kinds of feelings, but none of them are the kind you think they are. As soon as I said it, Alicia stubbornly shook her head. Her eyes looked even redder. No, you can't just stop loving someone like that. That kind of talk is cruel. Please, don't be so cruel to me. Okay. I took a deep breath, preparing to make things even clearer, something along the lines of I don't love you anymore or there's no chance for us. But just as I opened my mouth, Alicia seemed to sense it and cut me off. You're still mad right now. I don't believe a single word you say. I'm leaving. She left in a hurry, almost stumbling as she went. Just as the lecture ended and the crowd began filing out of the auditorium, I received a message from Willow. Meet me in the parking lot. Black Volkswagen. Chapter 20. I'd already ridden in this car twice before, so it wasn't hard to find. I crouched beside it, waiting for a few minutes, then got a message from Willow. Someone with taste bad enough to fall for Alicia. Are you even capable of finding a car? I quietly started inspecting the less visible spots where one might key a car. Not that I would actually dare to do it. Paint jobs 50 grand. I looked up. Willow stood a few meters away, arms crossed, smiling at me. I stood as well, trying to scam me. I do recognize this brand. You know, the dean used to drive a beat-up VW worth only a few $1,000, sharp edges, retro style. He sold it later to help cover expenses for the students. Yeah, not pricey. Cheapest one in the garage, just a little over $2 million. Willow said with a casual smile. Go ahead, scratch it. I'll give you the friends and family discount. Just 10 grand. I was speechless, crushed by the oppressive power of capitalism. I even closed the car door with exaggerated gentleness. Willow drove us straight to a restaurant. After asking if I had any dietary restrictions, she ordered a few home-style dishes. While we waited for the food, she asked, what kind of expectations do you have? I do. I've packed all my classes into Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday mornings, so I won't be able to go to the office during that time, but I'm happy to work weekends if there's any need. No problem. What about salary? Whatever the standard intern pay is at your company is fine, excluding transport and meal allowances. The current daily rate is $400. Double pay on weekends. Overtime is optional. I mentally calculated the income. It was still far from my goal of studying abroad, but by the time I graduated, I could probably save a solid six-figure amount. Besides, this internship would be a strong addition to my resume. Next, Willow gave me a detailed explanation of the company's product direction and my job responsibilities. I noticed that no matter what she was doing, driving, eating, she always spoke in an organized, clear, and concise manner. In just a few sentences, she made everything much more intuitive and digestible than what I had spent a whole day reading on the company website. Years later, when I had become a billionaire leader in the industry myself, I suddenly realized Willow, with her status at the time, could have easily had her assistant handle this. There was no need to personally recruit a lowly intern. The tea on the stove started bubbling. Willow leaned over and poured a cup for me. When she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, it revealed a prominent handprint on her cheek. So Daddy Lou really didn't hold back. I didn't think our relationship was close enough for me to ask personal questions, so I instinctively looked away, pretending I hadn't seen anything. But my hesitation didn't escape Willow's notice. She gave a faint, bitter smile and said, "You've seen it twice already. Kinda embarrassing." Now I did feel a bit guilty. I replied seriously, "Sorry, I said some pretty harsh things back then. You don't need to apologize. I was the one who crossed the line first." Willow didn't seem to care much, and continued, "That illegitimate brat went crying to her dad, saying I was trying to sabotage your relationship out of revenge. The old man didn't even ask questions, just slapped me on the spot. No one knew better than Lou Sr., who had really instigated everything. He was the one who summoned me to the old house. He was the one who made the offer." The thought of Alicia still twisting the narrative, deflecting blame, and lashing out with impunity under the protection of favoritism left a cold feeling in my chest. I said sincerely, "This breakup had nothing to do with you. I'll talk to Alicia and make it clear, so she doesn't retaliate against you anymore." "Retaliate?" Willow let out a soft laugh, her lashes trembling slightly. There was a hint of amusement in her voice. "She's not even capable of that." At that point, I finally gathered the courage to ask the question that had haunted me for a long time but never gotten a straight answer. Back then, when you approached me, was it also to get back at her? Chapter 21. No. Then, was it just to use me? I couldn't think of any other explanation. Willow paused briefly before parting her red lips. You could say that, but not entirely. She looked at me with those stunning eyes. Impossible to read. The past was already in the past. I didn't want to keep digging. I lowered my head and quietly focused on eating. A week later, I officially started my internship. There was no buffer period whatsoever. On the first day, I was thrown straight into a product concept meeting. So busy my head spun, but I didn't really feel tired. The knowledge I was exposed to was much more concrete and practical than anything I learned in textbooks. All I could think about was how much I craved to broaden my skill set. It wasn't until I got off work that fatigue hit me all at once, and I just wanted to crash in my dorm. But Alicia appeared, dark circles under her eyes, face drawn and exhausted. If it's money you want, I can give you however much you need. Just, please, stay away from Willow. I ignored her and brushed off her hand. The next day, she was waiting again outside the dorm. This time, she stubbornly hugged me from behind, pressing close. Her knuckles, arms, her whole body, were trembling. I didn't sleep a wink last night. I finally figured it out. You're doing this for the job, aren't you? I'll beg my dad to give you a high-paying, stress-free job at the Lu Corporation. Wouldn't that be better? Poverty can strip people of their pride. So can wealth. Alicia once praised my design work as unique and said I'd surely rise to the top on merit alone. When I stayed up all night to finish a competition proposal, she sat with me in a noisy internet cafe and gently handed me a coffee, saying, I feel bad for you, but I also understand this is your vision for the future. I don't have the right to interfere, and I'll support whatever you choose. I froze for a moment, then forced myself to pull away from that memory. I was rushing to work. One by one, I peeled her fingers off of me. Alicia stared at her own hand in disbelief. She couldn't believe I was being this cold. At least Willow knows how to respect people. What about you? I spoke in the calmest voice possible, delivering the one truth she least wanted to hear. Ever since returning to the Lu family, everyone, except her father, had made comparisons, constantly reminding her she'd never measure up to Willow. Willow was born with everything. And Alicia? She clawed her way up from the bottom, forever carrying the stench of poverty, a bastard child with neither legitimacy nor status. Now even George thought she wasn't as good as Willow. Shock and sadness hit her all at once, but even more so, she was burning with humiliation. She had stood out there all night. Now, it was like the strength drained from her, leaving her utterly defeated. Watching my back as I walked away without hesitation, she screamed in despair. She's just using you to get back at me. Do you seriously think she'd have real feelings for some broke student like you? But I didn't even flinch. My steps never slowed, and I left her far behind. Her words no longer stirred the slightest ripple in my heart. Maybe Willow had her own motives, but at least she was upfront about them. And even if I was being used, so what? That relationship should have ended a long time ago. No one else could sway my judgment. If anything, I was the one benefiting from it. Work got so hectic that I gradually pushed thoughts of the orphanage to the back of my mind. I'd already informed the director, and with Willow providing financial support, I figured there wouldn't be any issues. But a few days later, the director suddenly called, asking if I could help take a look at a contract. A wave of unease hit me. I immediately requested leave and rushed back to the orphanage, but I was already too late. I skimmed through it, didn't see any issues. It mentioned building a new activity room, renovating dorms, that kind of stuff. We really do need all that. She said it was urgent, so I signed right away. I took the contract. At first glance, it looked fine, but remembering Willow's warning, I couldn't shake the unease. Why didn't you tell me ahead of time? The Lu family might not have pure intentions. The director shook his head and said, but it was Alicia who came. Why would I ever doubt her? Chapter 22. Ever since that last encounter with Alicia outside the dorm, she hadn't shown up for a while. Turns out, she was just biding her time, plotting to screw over her own people. Seeing the director's firm, trusting expression, I held my tongue. In my mind, Alicia's face started to blur into Lu Sr.'s. They were becoming eerily alike. At this point, there was nothing to do but proceed cautiously, one step at a time. Just as I walked out of the orphanage, I saw Willow waiting at the gate. Today, she wore a black sleeveless top paired with a white mid-length A-line skirt. Her hair was softly tied to one side. She looked every bit the elegant heiress. I blinked. What are you doing here? Heard you took the day off. Thought I'd check on my employee. Maybe my face looked too grim, because Willow's smile faded. She lowered her voice and asked what had happened. I told her everything, and she replied, oh, that's it. If they can stoop that low to beat you, why can't you strike back with something smarter? Sometimes, turning an unfavorable situation on its head is actually an opportunity. She didn't spell it out. She just waited for me to figure it out myself. I don't know how long I sat there in silence before finally looking up. Do you have any contacts in the media? Willow's eyes instantly lit up. She didn't hide her admiration at all. You figured it out. Any later and the mosquitoes would have eaten me alive. She pouted a little and pointed to the back of her hand. Her fair skin was dotted with little red welts. Then she tossed me her car keys with that same bitten-up hand. It's too itchy to drive. You can. Right. Be a dear and take me home. Smart guy. I waited a few days before finally reaching out to Alicia. I invited her back to the orphanage to catch up. Over the phone. Her voice trembled with emotion. We've been through so much together. How could we possibly let go? I swear. I'll never. Let's not get into that now. Just come over. Alicia dressed up for the occasion, even wore the dress I'd given her 2 years ago. But the moment she stepped into the orphanage, she was greeted by microphones and cameras. I stood in front of them, wearing a face mask, and lifted my hand to redirect everyone's attention toward her. This is the official liaison from Lu Corporation. Today, I've invited members of the press and various media outlets to join us so we can express our heartfelt thanks to Lu Group for their incredible generosity. At the same time, I'd like to make a public commitment on behalf of the orphanage. Every single cent of this donation will be used exclusively for the intended purposes. Under the joint supervision of both the public and Miss Lu herself, we will employ construction and inspection teams from within Lu Corporation to ensure the project's quality and safety. No shortcuts, no cut corners. This orphanage has been around for 40 years. It's a home for the children, and it's where Miss Lu herself grew up. It carries the cherished memories of so many. We sincerely hope the children can continue to grow happily in this safe haven. Don't you agree, Miss Lu? Alicia froze for a second, then realized she'd just been checkmated. Being in charge of supervision now meant being accountable for the final results. And if the construction or oversight came from Lu Corporation, they certainly couldn't afford to tarnish their own reputation. What's more, I'd just played the emotional card and elevated the orphanage's role to a moral high ground. On the surface, it all looked like Lu Corporation was getting great PR, but in reality, I had just shut down every possibility for shady dealings. Alicia knew she had messed up and failed to meet her father's expectations, but with the cameras rolling, all she could do was swallow her pride, force a smile, and say, yes, we welcome oversight from the public in every sector. Applause broke out. Willow stood in the back of the crowd, arms crossed, watching me with a soft smile. Her lips moved silently, as if mouthing the words, well done. Chapter 23. After the crowd dispersed, Alicia remained standing in place. She looked hurt, disbelief written all over her face. Why? She asked. That's what I should be asking you. I replied coldly. You know what the orphanage means to everyone. I never expected you to repay anything but betrayal. That's the least I didn't expect from you. You don't even trust me that much anymore. Her voice cracked. My dad already agreed to it. All I wanted was to relocate the orphanage. He even promised more funding. She buried her face in her hands, looking like she might be crying. I gave up a whole project for you. That was my ticket into Lu Corporation, my last chance. Why couldn't you just believe me? But what had she done wrong, really? Back then, she only wanted what she thought she deserved, and lost George in the process. Now, she just wanted to prove she could be better than Willow. Why did everything have to fall apart? I listened to her sobbing and looked at her with a face that was equal parts pity and indifference. Alicia, you weren't supposed to become like this. Oh, and what was I supposed to be then? Keep wearing this 500 yuan dress and eating steamed buns for the rest of my life? Her voice rose. We're both daughters of the Lu family. Why is it that whatever she does is perfectly justified, but when I try to rise above, I'm ungrateful? 500 yuan. I still remembered how I'd scrimped and saved for a month just to buy that dress. I also remembered how happy she was when she first received it. Suddenly, she jerked her head up. There's no way you thought of all this on your own. Was it Willow? Did she tell you to do it? You think she's helping you. She just doesn't want me threatening her position. She's still using you. I stayed quiet for a long time, watching her unravel, shouting in complete breakdown. I won't lie, part of me did feel sad. Too much had happened recently. I had just barely come to terms with the breakup. Had just started processing what Alicia meant to me going forward. But now, it seemed like we couldn't even remain friends, let alone family. I turned my back to her, voice low. If there's benefit to me, what does it matter if I'm being used? Didn't you use the director's trust when you signed that contract? Didn't you take advantage of my love, over and over, assuming I'd never leave? I no longer cared about Alicia's sobs or her wounded look. I turned and walked toward Willow, who was waiting for me by the orphanage entrance. She was holding one side of her face, looking like someone who'd just been through war. I swear, I'm only gone for a few days, and your orphanage mosquitoes are ready to eat me alive. What happened? I asked. She lowered her hand, revealing a red, swollen eye. Nothing much. Just got a little taste of how wildly unfair the world can be. Even like this, she was still ridiculously pretty. I stared a little too long before coughing awkwardly and turning my head. Thank you, really. Like a celebrity with a public image to uphold. Willow quickly covered her eye again and replied wearily. Sigh, taking care of employees. That's all. Then let the employee treat the boss to dinner. Willow blinked, her tone light and teasing. Anything I want. I got paid weekly, so I had a little cash, but probably only enough to afford one meal for this elite heiress. I swallowed the pain and nodded solemnly. Anything. Then, ramen it is. In front of the small mom-and-pop ramen shop near campus, I could feel all the eyes on us. Students passing by kept stealing glances, every single one landing on Willow. She didn't just attract mosquitoes, she attracted butterflies too. And no surprise there. She wasn't just absurdly beautiful, she had a natural air of elegance that clashed entirely with her surroundings. Could someone like her really be okay with eating ramen? To my surprise, not only did she not complain, she ate with grace and actually enjoyed it. After finishing, she let out a deep, satisfied sigh and suddenly said something that felt totally out of the blue. I've finally had it. It reminded me of some celebrity interview I once saw. The son of the richest man in the country said his childhood dream was to ride the bus just once. Turns out, rich people's dreams really are simple. Chapter 24. I didn't expect Lou Sr. to come looking for me again. This time, the car came straight to the school gate, leaving me no room to refuse. As it drove up the mountainside, I didn't think of how upset Alicia had been the last time I came here. Instead, what popped into my mind was my first unpleasant encounter with Willow, and the fruit gift box I'd accidentally left in her car. Damn it, that thing cost over 200 yuan. This time, Lou Sr. wasn't inside the house. He was waiting for me in the backyard tea pavilion, and he even poured me a cup of tea himself. Long time no see. I got straight to the point, as always. What's this about? Mr. Lou, your daughter and I have nothing to do with each other anymore. He let out a heavy sigh. Alicia found out it was me who made you break up. She's been sulking, locked in her room, refusing to go out. She doesn't understand that everything I did was for her own good. Ah, that girl, she's like her mother. I can't bear to hurt her. But unfortunately, she's also like me, too sentimental. To this day, I still don't know the full extent of the Lou family's tabloid-worthy secrets. But for someone with an illegitimate daughter, he sure speaks with impressive self-righteousness. You may come from humble roots, he said, but you've got brains and guts. One day, you might be worthy to stand beside Alicia. I won't oppose your relationship anymore. Think of this as me giving my blessing. I pushed the delicate Riao teacup back toward him. Your approval or not makes no difference to me. I won't go back to her. Just like I didn't choose to break up because of your so-called support for the orphanage. Lou Sr. narrowed his eyes at me and let out a cold huff. Calculating, aren't you? Not even trying to hide it. I met his gaze calmly, just riding the wave. Compared to the traps you've set for me, Mr. Lou, who's really more noble here? The air froze. It took a long while before he finally spoke again. Looks like I underestimated you. An orphan, with an inflated sense of self, a sharp tongue, and apparently the ability to get both my daughters fighting over you, even to the point of doing things that go against the family's interests. I frowned. Since when did Willow start fighting over me? Before I could ask, Willow had already arrived. She was slightly out of breath, but the moment she saw me, her expression softened, like she'd just found peace of mind. Then, she walked right up, pulled out a chair beside me, and sat down, legs crossed, gaze cold and defiant. So free today. Don't you have better things to do than cleaning up after your pathetic daughter's screw-ups? The moment I'd first seen the bruise on Willow's face, I'd suspected that Lou Sr. had some kind of rage disorder. Now it was confirmed. Without a word, he grabbed the full teacup and hurled it across the room. Willow didn't flinch, as if she was used to this kind of violence from him. But I moved on instinct, stepping in to shield her. Hot tea splashed across my back, instantly searing my skin. Even though I moved fast, some still scalded Willow's shoulder, leaving a glaring red burn. Ignoring the pain, I gently held her arms, voice soft. Are you okay? Willow's eyes turned red. She shut them, holding back tears, then gave me a tiny nod to ease my concern. After I left, reluctantly, turning to check on her again and again, Lou Sr. didn't even bother pretending anymore. He stood up and raised his hand, the way he must have done hundreds of times before. But this time, it never landed. Instead, there was a cold chuckle. Willow stared at him blankly, expressionless. Then she clicked her tongue and said, cool as ice, haven't had enough of hitting people yet, have you? Chapter 25. I should have beaten you to death. Do you even understand how valuable that land is? I already said, whichever one of you two sisters secures it gets to take over operations in the East District. Even your younger sister was willing to sacrifice the orphanage for the sake of the family. But you help outsiders resist. What is it? Grow a conscience all of a sudden just because of some guy? Don't think you're untouchable just because you've accomplished a little something. If you want a piece of the Lu Corporation, you'd better learn your place. Willow let out a laugh. Kissing up for that pathetic girl. My mom only gave birth to me. He could bow his head for his precious younger daughter. But when it came to Willow, there was no way he, as the father, would ever lose a daughter daring to defy her own father. Lu Sr. thought it was absurd. His face was filled with undisguised contempt. The way you looked at George earlier. It started a long time ago, didn't it? Always eyeing things that don't belong to you. Just like your mother. Willow thought of her mother, the poor, tragic woman. Years ago, when the Lu family fell from grace and lost its standing among the elite, Lu Sr.'s first love abandoned him coldly. Willow's mother, who had silently loved him for years, married him in defiance of her family's objections. They had once been happy, relying on each other, supporting one another. But on her deathbed, she found out that Lu Sr. had long since rekindled his relationship with his first love, and even had a 2-year-old daughter with her. Lying in that hospital bed, in her final moments, he told her, "You took advantage of my vulnerability. I never loved you." She died with those words. Willow was only 4 years old at the time. Now, at 24, Willow no longer felt fear when facing the men who didn't deserve to be called father. "If you ever lay a hand on me again, or on George, I won't hesitate to take Lu Corporation for myself, and you know I can. I don't need your approval. I have the ability to do it on my own." Maybe Willow had parked in a rush. She hadn't even locked the car. I sat inside, head spinning. Before long, Willow came out and got into the passenger seat. The moment she sat down, I grabbed her arm and started checking her over anxiously, words of concern slipping out before I even realized it. "Does it hurt?" "No, don't lie. Let me see." The redness on her shoulder stretched down beneath the collar of her blouse. I couldn't see it. Without thinking, I reached out to pull her collar down slightly. "Hold still. Let me check." As I leaned in, Willow suddenly grabbed my wrist. She didn't say anything, but her gaze was playful. My heart skipped a beat, and only then did I realize how inappropriate my actions were. Tugging at a girl's collar. I must have lost my mind. I tried to pull my hand back, but she held on tighter, her eyes sparkling with mischief. I felt mortified. Even my voice grew flustered. I didn't mean anything by it. Don't get the wrong idea. Finally, she let go, with a teasing smile and eyes curved like crescent moons. Suspicious, short-tempered, easily flustered, you'd make a perfect little emperor. Even now, she had the energy to crack jokes. Oddly enough, it made me relax a little. As the car pulled away, I caught a glimpse, through the rearview mirror, of someone who looked like Alicia, standing quietly behind a floor-to-ceiling window. I turned away, facing Willow's profile. I used to think the two of them looked a little alike, but after getting to know Willow, I never felt that again. Driving along the mountainside, I chuckled. "Do you remember the first time we met? It was right here. I even left a fruit gift box in your car." "I remember." Willow smiled. "I ate it. The Shine Muscat grapes were terrible, but the guava was all right." I stared. "You ate it?" She pouted and said, "What? Couldn't bear to part with it. Didn't I repay you with a birthday cake later?" "So the birthday cake was from her?" I hesitated. "That's not it. The gift box came out of your family's trash bin." Chapter 26. The pampered heiress of the Lu family went pale, then flushed red. Watching her flustered like that after she'd just one-upped me made my mood unexpectedly good. She seemed a little upset. On the ride back to campus, she didn't say a word, not until I was about to get out of the car. "George," she called out, lowering the window. "That was your first meeting, not mine." Before I could react, she hit the gas and took off. I stood frozen in place, the sound of my own thundering heartbeat echoing in my ears. After spending so much time dealing with the Lu family, I'd learned to be cautious. Earlier, when Willow told me to go wait outside, I deliberately walked very slowly. I heard every word Lu Sr. said, clear as day. He claimed Willow had her eyes on me from a long time ago, and Willow hadn't denied it. Just now, when she emphasized it was my first meeting, that was a test, but hearing it confirmed, out of her own mouth, I was still stunned. And, maybe just a little bit happy. Willow is a complicated person. She could be proud and aloof, graceful and intellectual, and then suddenly mischievous and playful. It's like she wore 100 different masks. More importantly, she had a soft heart. At the orphanage, I'd seen kids throw mud at her, ruining her custom designer coat, but she just laughed it off. I'd seen her instinctively catch a child's half-chewed food droppings without a trace of disgust. So when things were at their worst, I chose to seek help from her, even when her position wasn't clear. That wasn't about mutual exploitation. That was a gut-level trust. Even Alicia had never really cared about my sense of self-worth. My hard work was dismissed as pointless effort. My refusal of money was labeled as pitiful pride. She saw me as someone incapable of solving problems independently. But Willow didn't. She didn't hand out money directly. She offered a job. She didn't tell me how to fix things, she guided my thinking and encouraged me when it mattered. Being around her felt easy. I didn't have to be submissive or proud. I didn't have to hide my background or be cautious of hers. Even when things got awkward, she could always defuse the tension with a simple joke. I think Willow might really be a good person. The past couple of weeks had been just as hectic as ever. I'd just finished lunch and was planning to rest my head at my desk for a bit when our team lead called me over. There's a file that needs President Liu's signature, Little Wong. Go drop it off. Before I could respond, he added, it counts as off-site work, travel reimbursed, double pay. I couldn't refuse. I quickly asked for the address and headed off to deliver the documents. It was the top floor of a duplex in the city's CBD. I stood downstairs and called Willow. The phone rang for a while before she picked up, her voice still lazy and half asleep. What is it? Get up and sign this before you go back to bed. Miss Liu. Willow suddenly sat up in bed with a jolt. I'll let security know to bring you up. Sure enough, a security guard soon jogged over and respectfully swiped his access card for the elevator. I'd heard the units here were all standard single-floor apartments, one elevator per home, but when you've got enough money, rules are made to be broken. Take Willow for example. She bought out the top 2 floors and turned them into a sprawling open duplex with a panoramic view. The front door was slightly ajar. I knocked a few times, but when no one answered, I pushed it open and went in. Willow came out of the room groggy-eyed. No makeup, but still strikingly beautiful. She looked half asleep and flopped straight onto the couch. Where's the contract? After signing it, she poured me a cup of coffee and sat beside me, making casual small talk. As lunch break was nearly over, I stood to leave, but she called out to stop me. I haven't eaten yet. Wait for me to take a shower. We'll grab a bite downstairs. Then she disappeared into the bathroom. I had nothing better to do, so I stood by the window, looking out over the cityscape. Suddenly, a sound came from the bedroom, like someone turning a doorknob. Then, with a soft click, the door opened. Chapter 27. What walked out, padding gracefully like a feline runway model, was an actual orange tabby cat. It was very friendly, rubbing affectionately around my legs. They say pets resemble their owners, but this one didn't seem like Willow at all. She was slender and poised, while this cat was round and plump, rolling over to reveal a soft, snowy white belly. It reminded me of the big stray tabby at school. That one was just as affectionate, always eating, with the same golden-colored eyes. I'd pitied it, saw in it the same rootlessness I had. I fed it for a whole year. Then one day, it just vanished. I was crouched down petting this chubby new cat when Willow came out of the bathroom. She was wrapped in a white bathrobe, hair bundled in a towel. Her face, free of makeup, was slightly flushed from the steam, porcelain pale, tinged with rose. She looked breathtaking. Her hand paused mid-motion as she towel-dried her hair, and she frowned at the little tabby now dramatically rolling on the floor for belly rubs. You slipped out again even with the door locked. She scooped up the cat, pretending to scold it, scratching at my door again. Should I just chop off those naughty paws? Why are you so mean? I asked. Because gentle parenting spoils kids. This is the 3rd couch I've had to replace this year. Guess why? I looked at the cat, who even now was trying to claw the sofa despite being caught. I understood. This little orange rascal. I raised her myself from the day she was born. Bottle-fed her. Cleaned up after her. When Willow said this, her eyes were full of pride. I scratched the cat's head, listening to its contented purring. Is her name Little Orange? We used to have a big orange back at school. I fed her for a while, but she disappeared. Looked just like this one. Willow rose on her toes and gently ruffled my hair. What kind of logic is that? Since when do dads look like daughters? This is Big Orange's child. Big Orange was the mother. My expression shifted instantly. I looked at Little Orange with a whole new perspective, like I was staring at a relative. But the warmth on my head was hard to ignore. My gaze drifted from the cat to Willow's hand still resting on my hair. She was looking at me too, her smile fading, eyes growing more intense. The air between us thickened. Electric. Time felt frozen. Maybe it was the scent of her body wash, or maybe it was the shape of her lips. I found myself leaning in, instinctively. In the dark, every sense felt heightened. I could hear Willow's breathing grow uneven. I could smell her fragrance growing stronger, until, just as I accidentally brushed her trembling lashes, I heard the thudding of my own heartbeat, and then, a soft meow meow. Time resumed its flow. I snapped my eyes open and bolted for the door without daring to look at her. Behind me, Willow stood frozen, her face red as a cherry. No treats for you today, she scolded. Little Orange let out another tiny meow, sounding deeply wronged. They stared at each other, big eyes versus small ones. Eventually, Willow relented. Still frowning, she opened a cat treat and handed it over. Watching her eat happily, Willow even added a can of wet food. Fine, you don't have a mom, neither do I, and neither does George. I'll let it slide. Big Orange was dead 2 years ago. Willow had come across a disturbing anonymous post online, a video. The title read, "Finally waited till it gave birth. Time to bury the whole litter." The screen showed a bloodied, mangled mess. It was Big Orange, her body torn apart. Beneath her, newborn kittens. Willow had watched George secretly for months as he fed that stray. She saw him laugh heartily while rubbing the cat's belly, its paws kicking at the air. She saw him sit beside it under a dim streetlight and say, "I got paid today, let me treat you to a sausage." Willow hired someone from the underworld to track down the abuser, and had him beaten half paralyzed. The whole case became a major campus scandal, later buried by the Liu family with a hefty payoff. Eventually, she followed clues in the video to a nearby hillside where the cats were buried. The earth was still soft. Big Orange's body had already gone stiff. Only one tiny kitten, barely alive, remained. She took it home. Much later, George had asked her, "Have you seen Big Orange since? Did anyone adopt her?" Willow replied, "Yeah, a kind person, someone like me, took her in." Chapter 28. I hadn't thought about Alicia in a long time, until she reached out to me. Her voice was hoarse, worn thin after a month of silence. "Can we meet? I'm going abroad next week." I rushed over after work. Alicia had already been waiting for a while. The shop owner looked surprised. "Ah, you two got back together. What about that pretty girl who's been coming by to eat with you lately?" He was referring to Willow. Alicia pretended not to hear him, but her face turned deathly pale. She handed me a tray to get food, but I didn't move. "Just say what you want to say." She gave a small smile and went ahead, piling food into a big plastic-covered bowl all on her own. She didn't seem to enjoy any of it, but she kept stubbornly forcing it down. Back then, this was how I found joy in hardship. Once a month, I'd come here to treat myself and thought ramen was the most delicious thing in the world. But now, it doesn't taste the same. It's the same. It's just that it doesn't satisfy you anymore. The owner and his wife bustled behind the counter, chatting about the weather, their kid, and what to make for dinner. Alicia looked at them with quiet envy and murmured, "This was the life I used to dream of." She sighed, lowering her head further and further, trying to hide the tears welling in her eyes. "How did I mess up so badly, and end up losing you?" A fat teardrop fell straight into her bowl. I saw it, but I didn't say anything. After we finished eating, Alicia finally pulled herself together and forced a smile. "If there's still a chance someday, I'll wait for you in the UK. There won't be a chance." That smile collapsed into something even sadder than tears. "I'm just kidding. I didn't choose the UK. George, go do what you want to do. I won't bother you again." She turned and walked away, thin, fragile, and quiet. Her steps were slow, so slow, she fought the urge to look back for a long time, until she finally remembered she hadn't even said goodbye to George. But when she turned around, he was already gone. Chapter 29. The ramen shop owners were arguing again. It all started when Willow and I came in to eat, and the boss leaned over with a nosy grin. "Hey, swapped back to this pretty girl again." He was instantly yanked away by his wife, who twisted his ear. "You think you understand young people's relationships or what?" Willow had been casually chatting with me, but the moment she heard that, her expression darkened instantly. No matter how I teased her, she wouldn't say a word. I got annoyed too. What on earth was she mad about? So I stopped talking as well. A heavy silence hung between us all the way to the car. The moment the doors locked, Willow suddenly leaned in, pinning me back against the seat. Her face came so close I could see the fine texture of her skin. Even her voice had softened, gentler than usual. "George, why did you go see her again?" "Ah, why can't I? You had her pick you up last time when you left the Liu house, and now again." "What last time?" Willow suddenly turned awkward, muttering in a low voice. "Nothing. Just don't see her again." "Why not? Why do you ask so many questions? Isn't it obvious? I'm chasing you." The moment those words left her mouth, we both froze. Willow's pupils widened in shock. She quickly pulled her hand away from my shoulder. She'd just barely started to sit back up when I reached out and grabbed her shoulder again, pulling her close. Caught completely off guard, she found herself staring straight into my smiling eyes. Just like that time at her place, so close it was heart racing. And once again, she cursed that little orange cat in her mind for always ruining things. I, on the other hand, suddenly felt nervous. I licked my lips unconsciously. Screw it. I cupped her face and kissed her. 2 years later, Willow still remembered the rush of that moment. Just then, I happened to call her on video. It was 10 p.m. in the UK. I had just gotten out of the shower, hair wet and still dripping. "Dry your hair before sleeping." Aye. "Ma'am, what about you?" "Busy." Willow shot a look at the assistant across from her who was reporting in. He immediately snapped his folder shut and left the room, even closing the door behind him. "Not busy. Meeting's over. Contracts signed. And I've cancelled all social events." In truth, She was very busy. She was now fully in charge of the Lu Corporation. She had just flown in from another meeting, squeezed in 10 minutes to listen to her assistant's report, and would be rushing off to inspect a new project site in just half an hour. I was exhausted from my coursework. After just a few minutes of chatting, my eyelids were already drooping. Watching me slowly doze off, Willow felt a sudden urge, an urge to see him. Move next week's schedule up, pack it tighter. Seated on the flight to London, she finally let herself fall into a deep sleep. Chapter 30. In her dream, she was back in college. She had just found out that Lu's father was making a big public scene trying to find his illegitimate daughter. Furious, she rushed over to confront him, only to end up beaten badly. Bruises covering her body. The pain made it hard to even stand. She collapsed on the stone steps by the road, completely disheveled. A fat cat rubbed against her leg, brushing over the wounds bleeding through her torn clothes. Big Orange, look what I brought you today. A boy crouched down, feeding the cat while sneaking glances at her. Her face was covered in bruises, her clothes filthy, hair a mess. She looked like a homeless person. But just before he left, the boy tossed her a packet of Band-Aids and emptied over 100 coins from his wallet into her lap. She had known since she was little, people who are unloved have no right to seek attention. But in that moment, something cracked through the barren soil of her heart and began to grow. After that, she passed by George countless times. She saw him rushing between classrooms, catching his next lecture. She saw him crestfallen after his work was eliminated from a competition. She saw him giving day-old food from the convenience store to homeless elders. She saw him and Alicia, sitting side by side, blissfully eating ramen. It sounds ridiculous now, but she envied Alicia. Later, Alicia returned to the Lu family, naive, arrogant, ungrateful, carved from the same mold as Lu's father. When she heard that George had also gone to the Lu house, she didn't even think. She just rushed over. She had imagined 1,000 different scenarios where she would greet him again. In the end, all she could muster was pretending to casually reverse her car. Get in, I'll give you a ride. She admitted it freely. It wasn't about revenge, but it was about using him. Using his brief moment of pity, shamelessly trying to take more, to slowly, piece by piece, invade his life. I even absurdly wanted to blur the line between you and me. Like saying, let's get married. When the flight landed, she walked through London's damp, misty streets and knocked on his door. George, let's get married.